In 2018, when President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, it was more than just an economic decision. It was a direct punch to China's face. At that time, few could have predicted the scale of impact these tariffs would have. But instead of crumbling, China made a bold move. It took the punch head-on, and in doing so, set itself on a path to become one of the world's leading high-tech nations. The first tariffs imposed by Donald Trump in 2018 was a wake-up call for China. At first, the Chinese government was caught off guard. The US had always been a major player in global trade, and a confrontation with it was inevitable, but not this quickly. China had been growing rapidly, becoming the world's manufacturing hub, but the reality of the situation hit hard. If the US could impose tariffs, it could go much further. What if they banned China from accessing Western technology? What if they stopped providing crucial resources? This would cripple China's growth, which had been built on access to foreign technologies, like semiconductors, AI software, and manufacturing tools. When Joe Biden took office in 2021, China hoped for a shift in the relationship. Biden had deep ties with China from his time as vice president under Barack Obama, and his administration seemed like it might be more diplomatic. After all, Biden had visited China before, understood its complexities, and had spoken out in favor of cooperation. But instead of de-escalating the situation, Biden's actions escalated it further.
From trade war to tech war. Not long into his term, Biden imposed even more sanctions, particularly targeting the Chinese tech industry. The U.S. government barred major Chinese companies like Huawei from accessing critical technologies, such as advanced semiconductors and software, further deepening the tech divide. The situation quickly turned into what many were now calling the tech wars. Biden also asked Europe and other Western allies to sanction China, further isolating it from key technologies. One of the most significant blows came from ASML, a Dutch company that manufactures the advanced lithography machines used to produce semiconductors. These machines are critical for making the chips that power everything from smartphones to military technology. In 2022, ASML stopped selling these machines to China. But that wasn't the worst part. ASML also stopped servicing the machines that China had already purchased, which meant that China's access to cutting-edge semiconductor manufacturing technology was severely restricted. The US and Europe were teaming up to box China in. But instead of backing down, China began to see the writing on the wall. If the West could hit them in the tech sector, then it was only a matter of time before other sectors, such as energy, manufacturing, and even rare earth materials, would be targeted as well. This would not just be about trade wars. This was a geopolitical battle for the future of global dominance.
China hits the gym, preparing for the long haul. What did China do in response? They didn't sulk or wait for the pressure to pass. They got to work. The first major decision came with China's real estate sector, which had long been one of the biggest drivers of the economy. For years, real estate had been booming, but China knew that the Western sanctions would only get worse, and it needed to restructure its economy to survive in a more hostile global environment. So, China made the bold decision to cut off funding for real estate development. With that, the government ordered banks to stop giving loans to the real estate sector, and as a result, the bubble burst. Property prices plummeted, and the Western media jumped on the news, predicting that China's economy would collapse. Headlines flooded the global press. China's real estate bubble has burst, and it's only a matter of time before the economy crashes. However, the truth was that China was the one who poked and made the real estate bubble burst. China had a bigger picture in mind. The collapse of the real estate market was painful, but it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The move to cut off loans to the real estate sector was strategic. China realized that real estate wasn't going to be the future of its economy. Instead, it needed to invest in high-tech industries that could help it compete on the global stage. The government pivoted and instructed banks to redirect funds into critical areas like artificial intelligence, robotics, advanced manufacturing, and clean energy. In just a few short years, China's transformation was underway. The country poured money into its tech sector, pushing forward innovations in AI, robotics, and high-tech manufacturing. China was no longer just a factory for the world. It was becoming a high-tech powerhouse in its own right.
China's big moment, ready for the trade war. By 2025, China was far more prepared for the next phase. Enter Trump 2.0, who once again took a hard stance on China and imposed tariffs on nearly every country around the world, including U.S. allies like Europe, Canada, and even India. India, which had been positioning itself as a strategic partner to the U.S. in its efforts to contain China, found itself hit with a 50% tariff. This caught India off guard and forced its leaders to reconsider their position on China. As the global trade war intensified, China stood firm. Instead of retreating like in the past, China had restructured its economy and was now a formidable player in high-tech industries. When the U.S. imposed tariffs and sanctions, China didn't flinch. Instead, it countered with reciprocal tariffs, showing the world that it was not afraid to retaliate. In this round, China fought back hard. After Trump announced tariffs on countries around the world, including China, China struck back with reciprocal tariffs. Both China and the U.S. continued to escalate their tariffs until the U.S. finally backed down. One of China's most effective moves came when it decided to sanction the export of rare earth materials to the U.S. These materials are critical in the production of high-tech products, including semiconductors and military technology. The U.S. had relied on China for the majority of its rare earth imports, and suddenly, that supply was cut off. The U.S. was blindsided. Rare earths were essential for producing everything from consumer electronics to military weaponry, and with China cutting off the supply, the U.S. faced a serious problem. The U.S. had no immediate alternatives, and the global economy felt the shockwaves. This move by China was more than just a tactical decision. It was a powerful demonstration of China's growing leverage in the global economy. The final showdown: Trump and Xi in South Korea. In October 2025, Trump met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea at the APEC summit for what would be one of the most crucial moments in the trade and tech wars. The meeting symbolized the shifting balance of power. While the U.S. had tried to isolate China, China had not only survived, but thrived. Its economy was now more self-sufficient, and its tech industry was on the rise. At the meeting, the U.S. was forced to acknowledge that the trade war and the tech war had been lost. China had successfully navigated through the sanctions, built up its technological infrastructure, and emerged as a high-tech giant. The balance of global power had shifted, and the U.S. could no longer dictate the terms of international trade and technology. China's transformation from a manufacturing giant to a high-tech powerhouse wasn't just the result of its own policies. It was a direct response to the U.S.'s attempts to contain it. Instead of shrinking back under pressure, China used the sanctions and trade wars as an opportunity to innovate, invest in key industries, and reshape its economy. Now, as the global economy continues to shift, one thing is clear: China is no longer just a factory for the world. It's a leader in high-tech industries, poised to shape the future of global innovation. The U.S. may have initiated the trade wars, but in the end, China emerged as the victor in the tech wars. The question now isn't whether China will overtake the U.S., but how the two superpowers will coexist in a rapidly changing world order. So, what do you think? Do you agree with our video? Tell us what you think by leaving your comments below. If you like what you watched, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos.